Hello, my dear soul brothers and sisters. My name is Vas Solo. I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic, a practicing yogi, and a certified meditation coach. And today's video is about the 3 different types of addicts. So this classification is taken straight from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, from which the 12-step program of recovery is derived. And this is the program that I used to recover from my addiction. Now, before I begin, I just want you to know that I'm not speaking on behalf of the program or anyone in the program. I'm just sharing my experience with my own recovery and with my own addiction. I hope that by sharing these 3 categories, I can help you to better understand what truly makes someone an addict, at least according to the book, and perhaps figure out for yourself which category you might belong to. I remember I was about 1 year into my recovery when my wife and I attended a wedding. And I remember being at a table with other people, and I was sipping my Diet Coke, and the rest of the people had their alcohol. And I remember noticing how slowly they were drinking their booze. For example, this one girl had a mixed drink that she nursed for like 2 hours. And I remember thinking, there was no way that I could possibly do this. Even now that I'm recovered, if I was to go and take a sip of that drink, I'd be off to the races. The wedding was open bar, and I knew that had I gone to that wedding while I was still an addict and an alcoholic, I'd probably be 5, 6 drinks deep within an hour or 2. And so I cannot drink like a normal person, but a type 1 can. A type 1 can have a couple of drinks and simply leave it alone. Now, are there people like that who use cocaine or heroin in the same way? I remember I was working with somebody who was in recovery, and he told me about a friend that he had who could buy an 8-ball, could put that 8-ball into his drawer and not touch it for like a month, 2 months, until there was a special occasion, and then he'd take some of it, he'd have fun, and then he'd leave the rest for another time. And I know that had that been me, that 8-ball would be gone within a day, probably less. So once again, a type 1 is somebody who can use a little bit recreationally and then just leave it alone. They might not even drink or use for like a year, but a person like me cannot. A type 2 is somebody that can let their addiction or their use get away from them for a while, especially if something happens in their life that causes them to feel depressed, or it's a cataclysmic event. Let's say they lose their job or they go through a divorce. And so as a way to medicate themselves, they'll start drinking a lot, or they'll get into harder drugs, they'll party. But once there is a sufficient enough reason for them to put the stuff away, they can stop. So let's say that they start having trouble with their finances, or they get into a new relationship and they say, okay, now I'm starting to heal, I don't need this stuff anymore. If they have a sufficient reason, they'll go on this sort of bender or spree, or it'll just be a phase, and then they'll be able to quit or to put it away or to use responsibly. Now, when I look back at my own history, I remember that no matter what happened in my life, no matter what the consequences were, I could not stop. So I remember when my mom found out that I was using drugs, because I told her, listen, I have this issue and it's kind of getting away from me, and I really do want to stop. And so I shared that with her. And once she knew, she became very concerned, but sharing that with her did not help me to quit. I kept using for many years afterwards. When my passion for fitness was strong and I was going to the gym constantly, and I was really, really interested in being healthy and in shape and athletic, but when that passion could not override my addiction, that was another sign that I wasn't a type 2. When my work started to go downhill because I wasn't showing up for training sessions with my clients and I couldn't stop, that was another sign. I remember when I was 25 and I was at work, I was really hungover, and I had this episode where I started to become short of breath, and I actually thought that I was having a heart attack. What I later found out was that it was an anxiety attack, but I'd never had one before, so I thought something is happening with my heart. And after that episode happened, I remember I went to my doctor, I went to a cardiologist, and I truly, for a while, thought there was something really wrong with my health because of the lifestyle that I had been leading prior to this, of all the partying and the drinking and the smoking of the cigarettes. And I stopped for a couple of weeks. But then gradually, even though I was really concerned for my health, I picked up drinking and using and smoking and all of that stuff again. So even me thinking that I might possibly be causing myself some serious health issues did not help me to quit. So a type 2 is somebody that can quit once there is a sufficient enough reason, but a person like me cannot. When I went into the 12-step program and I started to learn a little bit more about what addiction actually is and what makes someone an addict, I realized that I was a type 3. A type 3 is a person that no matter how bad they want to stop, no matter how hard they try to stop, no matter how many good reasons there are for them to stop, they can't. They cannot quit on their own willpower. And that's what prevented me from actually getting help for a really long time. I justified my using by saying that it was just a phase, by saying that eventually I would get over it, by saying that, you know, the time would come. Like, I know I relapsed again, but next weekend I won't use. So I justified and denied, and I didn't want to admit that I was actually powerless or that I was an addict. I've shared in another video how even saying that, hi, my name is Vas and I'm a drug addict and alcoholic, that made me cringe inside even when I knew already that I was an addict. So it's a tough one to admit, but if you're somebody who's like me, who's a type 3, and no matter how many rock bottoms you hit, no matter how many bad consequences there are as the result of your addiction, if none of that is helping you to stop, then there's a good chance that you might be a type 3. Now, what worked for me to recover was by working the 12 steps. I needed a program of recovery that was drastic enough for me to make a significant change in my life, that would reorient my focus and give me some sort of purpose. So underneath that was the realization that what I was truly looking for my whole life was some depth and purpose to my existence. And I found that through spirituality. That's what the 12-step program helps us to understand and helps us to get to the point that it helps us to get to, is it helps us to come to the point where we start to reorient our life based on different types of values. But unless you fully concede to yourself that you're truly a type 3, it's not going to help you, because you have to actually be able to admit that you're powerless over your addiction. So if you're watching this video and you're hearing me talk about these 3 different types, ask yourself, which type am I? Do I still think that I can quit on my own? Can I have a couple of drinks or do a line and put it down? Or have I been trying to quit and haven't been able to? Have I been making excuses for why I cannot? And has this been taking me to lower lows until my life is basically falling apart? Because that's the point that I got to. And that's what finally sort of gave me that moment of clarity to say, I need to try something different, because clearly I cannot help myself. Thankfully, I found the 12-step program, and the 12-step program is what helped me to recover and start living a beautiful way of life. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody. You have to sort of walk your own path and figure out your own way, but it's something to consider. It's an option that's out there. Anyways, I hope that this video has helped you to sort of understand your addiction better, whether you have one or you don't, and that perhaps it'll motivate you to think a little bit deeper about what you're going through and perhaps consider getting help, whether it's from the 12-step program or somewhere else. Because if you're a real addict like me, there's no way that you're going to be able to quit on your own. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, comment below on what you thought of today's topic or what you think of addiction in general, what you're going through perhaps. Comment below. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.